Hello and welcome to our workshop today. Our title is Protecting Your Financial DNA. We're doing this workshop today in partnership with Advantage Federal Credit Union. We're very excited to partner with Advantage Federal Credit Union and offer this to our community. So our agency is Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Rochester, and we have been in business since 1970 in the Rochester area. We're very proud to be the only locally based nonprofit credit counseling agency in Rochester. And our mission is to focus on the financial health of individuals and families, helping those that we serve to achieve financial wellness through our programs and services we offer. We are a member of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. We're also licensed by the New York State Department of Financial Services, as well as a HUD approved housing counseling agency. And we're a member of the Better Business Bureau with an A+ rating. So I'll be your presenter today. My name is Andrea Colleen. I'm an outreach coordinator here at Consumer Credit. Here's my contact information. Feel free to touch base if you have any questions. So here's what we're going to talk a little bit about today: how our information can be misused, how to minimize our risk, whether or not to share information, steps if you've become a victim, how to resolve credit problems, and resources that are available to help you. So ways that someone can get our information. So we'll start with by taking our mail. Bank statements, credit card statements, even pre-approved credit card offers have our personal information on them. They can look in our mailbox, they can look through our trash. Personal work records may have some, will have some information on them. So make sure that we know how those are being stored. Of course, the biggest one probably should have been the first slide is going online to different websites, downloading different apps. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Skimming, which is a device that is handheld that can gather our information from different credit cards we might be using. So again, we'll review that. So someone can misuse our information. They can call a credit card issuer pretending to be us, trying to get more information, just to get access to that account number, maybe an expiration date or the number on the back of the account, to be able to use it for, in most cases, online purchases. They can use our information to open up new credit. In fact, that's the biggest thing that a scammer will do when they're trying to, or when they obtain our information, is to open up a credit card. They can also get a copy of our credit report, which is going to have a lot of information on there. So we definitely don't want that exposed. Even a bank account can be opened even getting checks. So we really want to be aware of that. And they use a practice called pretexting, which means maybe the scammer may have a bit of your information and they're looking for more. And they put out little pieces, whether it's a text message or a phone call, an email, even, just to get a little bit more information that they can use to complete their puzzle. Things that we can do to keep ourselves safe and minimize our risk. First of all, we should find out how our information is going to be used before given out. It's perfectly respectable to ask those questions. Another thing that we can do is pay attention to billing cycles. If we're receiving paper statements and they are received certain times of the month, or the month, maybe annual statements, quarterly statements, even if we receive them by email, keep a good indication of when those are arriving. At the end of every quarter, or beginning of each quarter, I should say, you'll receive any statements that you might receive maybe from retirement or different accounts. You should always receive a bank statement on a monthly basis, as well as credit card statements. So you definitely want to keep tabs on those, because even if someone got a bank statement or a credit card statement, or even like a car loan statement, there's a lot of information about us on there. So you really want to be careful. When we're mailing out mail or a card or a gift, we want to deposit that in an outgoing mailbox and promptly remove it from our mailbox. It's definitely safer to do that. This way we get in the habit of not only recognizing the time frame of when those bills are arriving, but if there's pre-approved offers, we want to shred them immediately. You can have a system set up to where as soon as there's mail that we're not going to utilize or we don't need, even if it's junk mail, if our name is on it and our address is on it, I would still shred it, or maybe place it in a paper bag to be brought to a place that can do the shredding for you. Some people like to burn their mail, whatever works the best for you. Another thing that we could do is minimize the amount of information that we're carrying with us. The days where we need to carry a checkbook with us or social security card are gone. We do not need to do that anymore. So if something was to happen where we lost our wallet or a purse or Hopefully not, but if it was stolen for one reason or another, we can know exactly what was in there. So when we're calling to cancel those accounts or to, be aware of what's going on, we don't have to make 1,000 calls. And, not that I want anyone to take anything, but if someone got a hold of a checkbook versus a credit card, it can be a lot messier of a situation. So be careful giving out information over the phone unless you've initiated that contact. Even, if someone obtained your information and someone might be calling you to confirm a little bit more data, just to kind of, like I said, complete the pieces of what they have, you should really be aware of those. And I really wouldn't give any information out over the phone. There's been situations where it looks like a legitimate phone call coming through our cell phone. It looks like a legitimate organization or agency, and it's not always the case. So there's nothing we could do to 100% foolproof, never, having our information compromised, but we can take some attempts to stay on track. Tear or shred any documents containing any kind of personal information, making sure that we're shredding it appropriately. It's kind of fun to do that, and they're not too expensive. So making sure those documents are shredded or destroyed so that no one can utilize them. Also, when it comes to our Social Security card, we mentioned not carrying it with us and only give it out if it's completely necessary, which sometimes they can be challenging when you're trying to make those decisions of whether or not to share our Social Security card. That's okay to ask those questions. It's perfectly respectable to do so. You don't have to provide it on every document if you're not comfortable with that. So there are certain occasions where a Social Security card is required. If we're applying for any kind of loan, doing any kind of banking, anything of that nature, it's definitely going to be required. We should also get in the habit of looking at our credit report on an annual basis. We can look at our 3 credit reports, which is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, on an annual basis using annualcreditreport.com. You can also call and order those. Even if you're using apps to track your credit or your credit score, I think that's really helpful because it will give you alerts or things of that nature, but you want to look out there too. I would still pull your reports on an annual basis, at least, to see how things are looking. If someone got our information and they applied for credit, it's going to show up on our credit report, probably not in our mailbox. So definitely something that's easier managed if we stay ahead of things. So when we're sharing our information, we do want to build that sense of cautiousness. Like I said, there's no way to completely prevent someone from misusing our information. We want to err on the side of caution, but you can also opt out of programs. So opting out is when you opt out of receiving pre-screened credit approvals and offers and things like that. So we really want to make sure that we're staying on track with that. You won't get so much mail, and you don't have to, shred as much. So it would definitely keep us more aware of the items that we are receiving so that we can open those appropriately versus all the junk. We might tend to put it aside and not look at it because there might be so much of it. I would say if we've created that habit, get out of it. Get out of that one. That's not a good one to do. We want to look at something every day or at least every other day. But if there's too much coming through, you can opt out of a lot of programs and you'll get a lot less mail. Unnecessary mail. So at the Department of Motor Vehicles, they can distribute our personal information for law enforcement purposes or driver safety or insurance purposes, but you can also choose on an application to not have our information distributed for other purposes when we're filling out that application. And you can check by probably going online or talking to someone at the DMV directly. For direct marketers, this is the association of people selling things directly to us. You can be removed from mail, email, and phone list by contacting the National Do Not Call Registry. If you've become a victim, let's talk through the 3 steps that we're going to recommend. So if we've become a victim, we're in that position, the first thing we're going to say to do is to place a 90-day fraud reports. Very easy to do. If you go directly to each website, you'll see. You can go right online and you can see initiate a dispute to where you can do that. You'll get the confirmation in an email. You can call. So here's the phone numbers. If you want to contact them directly to initiate that, they're probably just going to give you instructions as to how you can go online and do it. But again, it's a very easy step to do. They're typically 90 days. Sometimes they can be longer, up to a year. You can even freeze your credit, which is another step that stays there until you remove it. But a fraud alert basically will protect you. If anyone tries to apply for credit in your name, it will protect you because they have to confirm it's you. So it's a lot of more of a challenging process. It takes a bit longer, and I definitely would do it. So if someone received our information or used our information in any way, by the way, not just using credit, if someone applied for unemployment benefits in our name, that's a big thing that happened to people over the past few years. We need to put a fraud alert on our credit report. If we see that, there's an item on our credit report that we're just not familiar with, that wouldn't, you'd want to initiate a fraud alert. So that's our first step, do the fraud alert. Our second step is to close any accounts that have been tampered with. So if someone used your credit card, for purchases, or you think that this one's been exposed, close the account. It will not hurt your credit report to close this account because they're just going to close the account and reissue another card. So it's not like a hard hit on your credit in any way. It's not as if you're closing the account for future purposes or future use. You're closing the account to get a new number. Okay, so that's not going to hurt your credit. So you can close that. You can also create new passwords that are not easily deciphered, but you need to remember them. Find a system, because if we keep forgetting our password, which I've done, every time you forget, you have to redo it. And if someone ever got your email password, that can be a little dangerous. So we want to pick a password that's a challenge, but something that we can remember. It's not easy. And then you can dispute any fraudulent charges with the company's fraud department. And because they have departments that specifically deal with this. And by law, companies must provide copies of applications relating to any identity theft in writing. The third step is to file a police report. So we can go in person to our local police station, but the easier way is to call 311. You don't need to call 911. You can call 311. You can file the official report. It'll be sent to you in the mail. Maybe there'll be an email verification. This just serves as a good timestamp, so that if you're trying to dispute something upon a credit report or anything else, you can say, listen, I filed this report on this date for this purpose. So it's a pretty easy process. So those are the first three steps. The next step, it just really depends on what type of fraud it was. If it was for your bank, if it was a bankruptcy fraud, driver's license, there's different purposes, different processes for different purposes. So let's talk about if something has actually been used on your credit report. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA, is there to protect us from any untrue information being reported on our credit report, mostly if it's not our doing. So the credit bureau, both the credit bureau and information provider are responsible for correcting inaccurate or incomplete information. So there's a process to it. That's why if you've ever pulled a credit report, though there might not be a huge amount of debts, they're usually pretty thick because there's a lot of disclosures, a lot of rules and regulations, and this is all part of that. It explains this act. And then contact the credit bureau in writing and tell them what you believe is inaccurate. So to make a dispute is so much easier than it used to be. You can go right online and it will say initiate a dispute. I think I mentioned that earlier. And you can actually just type up why you're disputing something. You can provide any proof that you think could be helpful, whether it's the police report or whether it is confirmation of your mailing address or name, things like that to help you through that process. So once you've disputed it, any unverifiable information must be deleted. Any erroneous information can be corrected in your file, and they must give written results and a report so that you can see that things have been resolved. And if requested, the credit reporting agency can send a free credit report. Creditors. So if we're speaking of the creditors directly, in addition to writing or disputing online, if you're doing this by mail, I would imagine we'd mostly be doing it online. You can send it to the billing inquiry departments and send it certified mail so that you can keep track of your documentation. Usually within 90 days, the issue is resolved. It could be resolved within 24 hours. It really just depends on how quickly they're acting on it. Now, an ATM debit or EFT, now that's different than a credit card, like a creditor fraud. This is someone who actually got a check or they got your debit card and they have access to our bank account. So the Electronic Funds Transfer Act limits our liability, but you have to report if something's happened within an appropriate amount of time, because if we don't, it can fall back on us. So as soon as we realize that, which can be a challenge if it's a check, that's why just don't carry your checkbook with you, please. Because if someone took one check right out of the middle of your checkbook, it might take a while to realize that that check's missing, you know. But if we can't find our ATM card or something like that, or we see, you know, suspicious activity on our statement or, you know, our bank account online, we want to make sure that we stay ahead of that, because we could be liable for certain things if they're not. And that's another tip too, is a lot of times if a scammer gets our information, they'll test our account first, $1 here, $5 there. A lot of people don't notice that immediately because the dollar amount is so small. And then once those purchases don't go noticed, we'll see more and more. So, and they can add up. So that's a very tricky process, but keep an eye on your accounts. Keep an eye on your cards. So if someone, when we were talking about our phone, ways to protect our phone, use a PIN, use some kind of a sign-in PIN to make sure that we make sure that not anybody, if we lose our phone, they can't just sign in. Be careful when we're downloading apps. I mean, there's millions of apps out there, but I would download them from an official store, read the reviews on them, make sure that we know, you know, what we're doing before we just download any app. Keep our apps and our operating system up to date. You can use a VPN to also protect our information, and try to avoid using auto logins specifically for bank accounts. A lot of them won't allow you to, but you really want to be careful with that. So if we have become a victim, we talked a little bit about some of the things that we can do, but some organizations that could aid us, our Federal Trade Commission, also known as the FTC. So there is the website and phone number. They're not going to do the disputing for you. There's not many places that will do a dispute for you. You can do that on your own, but they will guide you as to how and the rules so that you know when to expect a time frame, what to expect once the dispute is complete, things like that. When it comes to banking agencies, there is the FDIC, which kind of oversees our banking agencies, as well as the national, the FDIC is the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation. So they oversee banks. So if something was to happen with like a bank or your credit union, the National Credit Union Association, which is the site right there, and things weren't being done appropriately or whatnot, you can reach out and they'll make sure that things are being taken care of, especially if it's a case of identity theft. But usually your bank or credit union can definitely touch base with you on that. There's also the New York State Attorney General's office to report any local scams that we've been seeing going on in our office at Consumer Credit Counseling Service. Not that we can dispute anything for you, but again, if you need that support, one of the counselors would be glad to walk you through that process. So if we are experiencing financial hardship, whether it's just with creating a budgeting system or falling behind on creditor debts or just trying to stay ahead of things, our agency is here. We're available Monday through Thursday from 8 until 8 and Fridays from 8 until 5. The sessions that we offer are typically scheduled for an hour, and we look at our financial goals, we look at our budget, we look at our debt and our action plan to really develop a system to help people with managing debts whatsoever. And then we help people craft solutions. So it might not be resolution to identity theft in general, but people do sometimes fall overwhelmed with creditor bills or just managing money in general. And if we really want to stay ahead of those, we definitely would love to help you out. So here's some of the programs and services that we offer. We have budget and credit counseling, debt manager programs, which helps people consolidate the bills into one plan, reduce the rates and all that good stuff, help them get current. We offer bankruptcy counseling, financial empowerment counseling, which I'll talk a little bit about on my next slide, first-time homebuyer education, as well as reverse mortgage counseling. We also provide foreclosure prevention counseling. So if someone is overwhelmed with their mortgage or they're starting to fall behind, even if you're working with your bank, if you do need that support, a housing counselor is definitely a good way to go there. Financial empowerment counseling, this provides a free one-on-one financial counseling as a public service. So we could definitely have access to those. I know that they have assisted some people or guided some people through the process if they have their information stolen. So that's kind of where things might start, but they can discuss things like saving more money, spending less money, banking, debt, credit, all of that. So that is what those counselors are designed to help you with. So here is our building. We are located at 1050 University Avenue in Rochester, New York. So here is our building, so you can easily access that and our contact information. So please feel free to reach out to us, visit our website, we can go on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, whatever you want, just to kind of see what we got going on. But we definitely want to help people. And we do thank Advantage Federal Credit Union for allowing us this opportunity to work together to really be able to educate our community on finances in all different aspects of managing money in our lives. So thank you very much. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we hope this was helpful to you. Thank you.